right. Hi, everyone on YouTube. Glad you're here. Hi, everyone on Zoom. Nice to see you. Glad you're here today. Getting started a little early. Make sure we have everyone on. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. So many beautiful people. Glad that you're here. Some new faces too. Welcome to anyone new. Glad to see you. Great. And glad to see you too, everybody on YouTube. We're going to have a beautiful afternoon. Or if you're in England or Australia, it'll be evening or morning. So it's quite neat. We get to have such an international community. It's glad to see you too, Alicia. Glad you're here. In Italy, it's late afternoon. Excellent. Nice that you're here, Valeria. Yeah, good. We'll start right at the hour, so one more minute. Hey, I'm glad that you're here, April. I'm glad that this is your first time. How cool. And welcome to all the first time people. I'm really glad. It's going to be a good day. I love October. All right. Yes. And hi, Ali. Aloha. In Venice, Florida. And Natalia. Hi, Sophia. Ciao. Good. All right. It's lovely. Oh, yes. And aloha from Hawaii Actual. Beautiful. Good. We're on the hour. So I'm going to record our session for us so that the circle call can be then found, of course, on the playlist, The Circle Community Calls on YouTube. All right. Good. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad that you're here today. It's a very special day. Thank you for being patient with me. Normally we meet on the last Sunday of each month. And I did a week-long retreat and totally underestimated how tired I would be afterwards. So I took that Sunday for self-care. We need some self-care. That's a key piece of sovereign, selfless, sovereign and selfless. They can't mesh perfectly. We do need to include ourselves in our work in the world, of course. So first I'd like to announce something. Been doing some assessment behind the scenes to make sure that the ease for you to come join me here for our monthly circle call is very simple. And it hasn't been. It's been too complicated. I've had people on Zoom or on YouTube, and Zoom's not big enough a lot of the time, and then people get confused. So we're going to streamline it, and I'm going to only be doing our live circle calls here on YouTube. And so if you're on Zoom right now, for in the future, we're going to just do live YouTube. And on my website, Seer and Scientist, and also 12starspublishing.com will have dates, actual dates and times. And we'll keep to them so that we can be sure that you're always knowing exactly where to go. And we'll have one place. We won't have you have to register anymore. I just want to streamline this, make it easy. If people need to click more than once, then it's just too much. So that's something you can look forward to. And if you're on my email list for either 12 stars or seer and scientist, you'll always get updates about when that's happening. And so look forward to that in your email. And now you know how we're going to rearrange this to make it easier. One click is best, and just being able to watch that from there. And we'll be able to get your comments and questions there too. Good. So with that, let's jump into some of the more juicy stuff that's been happening. Last time we talked, it was the end of August, and a lot has happened since then, of course. The whole month of September has gone by, the equinox itself as well. And we had another big push of light, a huge wave of light that came through during that time. And what has been revealed in this light, much like, say, for example, Lee Harris said at the beginning of the year, and he said it perfectly, blinding clarity. Blinding clarity. There's another way to envision this light versus just clarity or even bright light. It's purity. It's the purity of light. So the purity of light already exists in you. The earth and the spiritual realms, the emotional realms, these are being deeply shook up. As usual, Mother Earth has not held back in her sorting through frequency and light. And so what is she sorting? She's sorting consciousness. This consciousness is getting all the deep, heaviest stuff to the surface to be addressed and healed. And it's nourishing and helping to replicate and support the light that's already there. Your soul's light is already perfect and pure. And that perfection, that purity is really important. What distorts it is all that trauma, the genetic trauma of our human race, your personal trauma, and of course, ego. And ego is trauma under pressure. Ego is trauma under pressure. So it's all trauma based. And ego is when we're projecting these judgments about people, places, and things. That's totally part of the egoic structure. And it distorts everything. Let's say you're trying to express a truth, right? Well, I feel that this person is this way, or that this situation is this way. This is what I'm perceiving. You're perceiving it because you've brought in a certain amount of information, you've assessed it a lot of times with your mind, and then you've come to a conclusion about reality, totally normal way that we've been taught to assess information and to create opinions. But what we're missing is that a lot of times when those assessments are distorted, the information itself is distorted. And then it gets run through the ego, our judgments, our attachments, our resistance, and our expectations, right? It gets run through that back through you too. Any information around you, any light around you gets run through that, through to you, to this individual self, the soul that is in charge of creating the form of this body, the soul in charge. And vice versa, then the information, the words, deeds, hopes, dreams, they get run through all that back out into the world, and it looks distorted too. There's a lot of distortion going on. creates a lot of inner chaos, creates a lot of confusion, it creates a lot of division, and it creates people who feel over it. So if you've been feeling over it this month, and it's like, wow, what's the point? That's the exact energy which people can be turned into non-humans, humans that are no longer useful to the structures that be, right? And then you're canceled. So here we have this distortion, but the systems in place, the internet, for example, it's not going anywhere. What do we do with these things? Well, that's something that I was really looking at over this past month and realized that we can run light through. This is running light through. I choose very purposefully not to let this distortion completely take over. By doing self-inquiry and acknowledging my own distortions, which are going to get triggered by information from outside, those distortions can be revealed then. And that's where that idea, triggers are treasure, comes from. Triggers are treasure because they show you what's deeply held within your DNA and your embodiment, your body memory, and your whole embodiment, your mind, your heart, and your gut, and all your cells. It's showing you exactly what needs to be addressed, what needs to be healed. In healing that, what happens? Then the light and the information from the soul, it moves through and it's less distorted, much less distorted. It's more pure. People are able to hear it better. They understand it better. And even if there's a disagreement around opinion, it's impersonal. It's not personal anymore. Could we actually have a society where everyone was able to consistently have access to information that was undistorted and be able to maintain a multitude of opinions without people taking them personally? Well, that's what we're shooting for, and we accomplish that with deeper training around communication. That's very key. With a mindset around neutrality and having good discerning relationships with people, places, things, opinions, etc., systems. And discernment is that key word there. Earlier, when I was describing how people receive information, they're really mostly assessing it with the mind. And so here's the cool tool you can use from here to get better at discerning information. You can totally use your mind. That's always a good step. But then you've got to ask your brain to step aside and say, thank you, mind. I appreciate your help. Could you step aside, please, so I can do a deeper assessment? The brain mind can only give you so much. It can give you some pros and cons and logic, but there's so much more to decision making and discernment about what is truth and what is not truth. Then you've got to ask your heart. Your heart is the seat of perfect body memory. And so that heart, it's been with you the whole time. The heart barely regenerates at all. So through this whole lifetime, this one heart has been with you and it remembers everything. So from the seat of body memory, we can ask, dear heart, is this information true? Or is there a certain amount that's true? If you kind of look at information and assume that there's going to be a portion that's distorted and a portion that's got run through someone or some group of people's ego and trauma, and remember, this is normal and it's happening to everyone, no matter who the teacher is. Doesn't matter if they're even enlightened or not. They're running stuff through personality and basic structures of ego that are nearly impossible to shift. You can still be enlightened and have some of these survival structures of ego, like I need to breathe. That's going to be there, and why is that wrong? It's not wrong. But no matter what, people are going to run stuff through. And I just want you to notice that some of the light coming through certain people, say the enlightened folks, the really holy people, it's going to be less distorted, far less, and you can feel it versus, say, me or someone else. You can feel my goodwill, but I have loads of ego and I have tons of trauma. And I do my best not to allow that to distort our time together. But being mindful and being in self-inquiry then really helps all the people around you, and it helps you to discern better. So you ask your heart, how much of this is really true? Notice that. And then you're going to ask your gut. The gut is the seat of survival. The seed of survival is there to help you not just live on this planet, but to live in harmony with the actual planet itself. And that's why we've been cut off from our gut mind most of the time. Totally cut off. Most people have no idea that the heart and the gut are actually brains. They have neurons in them. So this is really important. Every distortion, if you're aware of the distortion and you're wanting to put your opinion out into it to try to make it better, that actually might be making it worse. Before you put any of your opinions, ideas, hopes, dreams, and words out there, assess really deeply exactly how can I make sure this communication is compassionate? Am I coming at this with a vantage point of the best neutrality I can come up with at the moment? Have I asked my whole body, mind, heart, and gut, if this is the best energetic use of my time? Maybe the debate or the issue, etc., is actually causing you to leak energy instead and worry about the future or the past. So the way you can tell that is if you begin to notice a topic running in your mind in a big circle, like a hamster wheel in your mind, then that's going to mean that your energy is leaking. So if there's a deep concern about something, it's going to cause this, what we would call spinning of the mind. And it's because it's trying to bring some polarity to rest. It's spinning this way. It got drawn this way in a conversation. The pendulum wants to go this way to fix the problem, but it keeps going until you find neutrality and stillness. So then, of course, the next step is this energy here? Can I be using this situation, this place, this platform, this technology? It doesn't matter what it is, texting, email, verbal usage of words, Zoom, YouTube, whatever. Can I be doing a little bit better job of putting light through this, pushing light through, not any of my ego or trauma? So that's why that self-assessment helps us to shift our communication into neutrality. If you're always in a self-assessment mindset and you're saying, I'm really triggered about this topic. How does that feel in my body? I'm really triggered when I watched this event. How does that feel in my body? When I go into that part of my body, does it remind me of other things I've been through? Does it remind me of other energies? It always has some basis for memory usually. Is there trauma around this? Do I have an attachment that I'm really attached to? Maybe I really, really want this outcome. And that attachment is now distorting what I'm saying because I'm pressuring for an outcome instead of allowing it to unfold through neutrality. So then you're going to be noticing those painful energetics in your body. This is when we use the other parts of the table legs. You know, one of the table legs is the mind. But that's not all. The mental body is only one of the four quadrants of change that have to happen. There's going to be the physical body too. And there's the emotional body and the spiritual body. Mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical are four table legs that keep everything stable in our consciousness. If you change one or tweak one, all the rest are going to get tweaked, including the physical, as you might have learned in my talk with you last at the end of August when I was healed up from shingles. We looked at what it took. The physical change didn't happen because of me only focusing on the physical, not at all. The change happened when I focused on the spiritual, emotional side and used the mental body to inform my physical body that I understood why I was sick. And in that understanding, the miraculous occurred. A very difficult illness was disappeared within a day that shouldn't have healed that fast. And it did because of the addressing of the underlying bodies, the emotional, mental, spiritual body, as well as the physical. So with that in mind, that's the game board we're playing on here. So the other piece I'd like to point out is merger is freedom. If you want freedom, you can't run away or escape or find only groups of people that agree with you or find only yourself completely isolated and cut off from things so that you can avoid the energies out there. And I'm talking to all of you empaths. Being an empath is not only a superpower, it can be really painful, but it's truly a superpower. And we need you, empaths. We need everybody on board for what's come, which I'm alluding to a little bit here. So we need everyone on board. We need people to be in self-inquiry publicly so that we can begin to change our culture. And when we begin to keep that mindset of self-inquiry in the mind and the beliefs that that's the number one and most important thing we can be doing to create peace and change in this world, then the physicality of that begins to shift. People notice that the wording in the communication has changed, that you're more and more neutral. They notice that. They notice it. People are sensitive right now. They're very sensitive, more so than ever. So if you're feeling extra sensitive these past couple of months, you're not alone. You're not alone at all. A lot of the issues people have had are finally ramped up so much they cannot ignore it anymore. So we're seeing this especially around full moon time like we are in right now. We're seeing it when we have breakthroughs, our family members, that shakes them up. It's real. You can time it practically. So the fact that this distortion is out there, that there's this corrupted energy of distortion from ego and trauma, and of course the systems that have been built to feed off of that ego and trauma, all of that's coming into full clarity and it's causing it to crumble. And if there's any people, places, things, groups, etc., holding on to these structures, all they're doing, and this is how you can have some compassion for folks who are really not having an easy time with change. All that is happening is that they're feeling the formlessness that's available now. And their mental body's panicking. There's nothing for me to stand on. Their physical body's in fight or flight mode. There's nothing for me to hang on to. Everything's crumbling. And then the emotional triggers show up, and then they're magnified by that. And if we have our reactions, and I'm one of them, getting angry at my partner for being triggered, right? Or even my kids, then we're making the distortion more magnified, and when that happens, I'm constantly in that self-inquiry mode. Hang on a second, where is this anger coming from? Is it really because my husband's having a hard day? Is it? Or is it because of me hanging on to stuff like outcomes, attachment to outcomes, me hanging on to an idea that my husband can be peaceable 100% of the time, all the time? Not really realistic. Am I hanging on to anything? Am I resisting formlessness? Am I resisting allowing my anger to move through like an old buddy? Hey, anger, I've learned so much from you. Can you move on through? Go ahead. You are welcome here. That's merger. Then the anger doesn't have power over me anymore. And I can speak compassionately and continue to regain neutrality. And in that, there's a huge blessing. The cup overfloweth with peace and stillness at that point. And so that can all only be done, of course, in the moment. It can't be done in the future or the past. Catch your brain mind going into the future, worrying about tomorrow. Catch it leaking into the past, reliving the painful memories that have occurred. And bring yourself into the moment. What can I do right now to create a better world, to create a better relationship, to create a better me, a better home, a household, a field? Whatever your focus is on, a better, happier, healthier body. What can I do right now? Right now. And so that's where all the power is. We're getting drawn into the future real easily. Oh, you need to worry about these events that may happen or may not happen. A lot of leaking energy into all of that, right? Focusing in the now. What can I do right now? What can I do? You're the soul in charge. You're the creator in the body. You're creating in the moment how you're using your energy exactly. Noticing the frustration, noticing the sadness, noticing, hey, some of these feelings don't feel like mine. And what do we do? Empath field, all of you empaths, your field moves energy through the field. So we give permission for all of those energies. Hey, if you're not mine, you're welcome to use my field to move on through. That's why it's there. That's why the field functions that big and why you can feel the collective, most of you. Because that energy needs help. Some of those folks, they don't have the tools. They haven't been introduced to the tools they need to be able to let energy move through. And so many of us have volunteered as empaths. I'm not an empath, but many of you have volunteered as empaths to let that energy move through. Don't underestimate how important that is. Now, all these subtle shifts are done from the internal, the personal, but it always affects the universal, always. Look for those proofs in the people around you. Look at and see when you make a big shift inside of you, don't tell anybody around you and see what happens. Do the people around you suddenly start acting out a little more? Are they having a harder time than usual after some internal big breakthrough you've had? That's one of those measurable results, because that means your energy is less distorted and more bright. And what does light do? It shines itself in the distortions and corruptions in the field, in the internal self, in those four quadrants of physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, all the distortions, all of the corruptions, they get revealed. They get revealed more than usual. So every time I shift a big amount of worthlessness and I'm around my family, the worthlessness in those folks then gets pushed to the surface because that light moves through everyone. And they always end up having a bit of a breakdown until they realize, okay, yeah, this has happened before. And now I notice that, yeah, okay, this is the worthlessness stuff coming up again. And it takes time, but if you keep pointing it out and saying, look, these breakthroughs happen, and then there's this big shift in all of us. And the shift can look like you seeming to have a hard day, or that you're extra angry in a certain period of time, or sad, or noticing the self-esteem stuff coming up again. And that's something that can be expected with shifts from everybody. Now that helps them to be in a little more self-inquiry. Is that true? When so-and-so gets back from a trip or an event, or, they did that session with that other person or whatever, they had a breakthrough. How many times has there always been this shift in myself when they got back from something like that? Well, eventually they'll notice this if you keep just drawing attention to it. And then that puts them into a state of self-inquiry. Now they want to know if it's true or not, because humans love patterns. Oh, yes. We can use that. We can use that ability. We love patterns. Every human does. If you use a lens, you're going to find out there are all sorts of patterns of anything you're trying to look for. Cognitive bias is what we call it. It's real. It's also useful. So you can use cognitive bias for bad stuff, sure, but we can use it for good. If we're looking for peace and love with our peace love lens, we're going to find it. If we're looking for anger issues, victim tyrant dynamics, abundance scarcity dynamics, if we're looking for that, we're going to find it. We'll find it outside the self. We'll find it inside the self, perhaps, if you use that lens for self-inquiry. So this is how we're going to begin to make some serious culture change. My favorite topic. If there's anything that's been more and more vivid to me over the past 6 months, 7 months, now it's like the 10th month, apparently, of this year. How'd that happen? In 10 months is that culture change and the rules that, and the laws and rules that guide change for human culture are very real and alive. So let me give you an equation to think about. Being a futurist and someone who's concerned for culture change, a culture where the merits of the individual is more valuable than, say, things like how much money you make in a month, where the human being is welcomed into and as a part of and an integral, important part of nature, not a parasite. That's the kind of culture change we're shooting for. Universal compassion, unconditional love, consent. These are the three tenets of a proper merit-based global culture. But global culture, even if it exists as it does now, global culture is only ever made up of individuals, just like any culture. So your inner changes and your self-inquiry do create culture change. That's why I'm telling you to be very conscious of the people around you that are close to you, that you're interacting with regularly. They're going to be the great mirrors that show you just how much work you've done or not. Because they're going to get triggered and you're going to get triggered. Triggers are treasure. They show you what is ready to go, what's distorting the field. And then we merge with those energies so they don't have power over us. We can merge with our difficult, painful opinions like this structure, group, people, place, thing, whatever is bad. If we merge with that, it doesn't have power over us anymore. We merge it by finding it in the body, right? The same process as always. We find it in the body, we welcome it. We find the emotions and the tension, we welcome it. We try to name the frequency and we welcome it. And if you can't name it, welcome it anyway. All it's there to do is help you learn. That's it. It's just frequency. It can't hurt your soul. You can only learn as a soul from any frequency. No more, no less. But here's the equation for culture change. It's very simple. First, you must understand that beliefs trickle down. Language and beliefs trickle down through all the structures of culture. And culture is especially uniquely human creation. We're specifically talking about human culture, not say like dolphin culture or crow culture. They have their proto cultures for sure, but human culture is the one who needs help right now the most on this planet. The Earth's trying to help us. She's pulled the floor out. She wants us to be in formless consciousness so we can all connect to each other and be in unity again instead of fighting or even disliking. So beliefs trickle down. Beliefs and ideas trickle down to affect social structures like relationships, like bigger social structures, like say the way the town is organized. That's a social structure. Communities. Beliefs trickle down and affect communities. They also trickle down and affect politics and economies. And they trickle down and affect the material world. But if you want things to change really fast, you can't just change your beliefs. You've got to change your relationship with the material world simultaneously. So here's how we're going to practice doing it this month, okay? And we're going to meet again on the last Sunday of this month because I kind of had to skip September a little. But that will be, and this is saying if I'm not actually on an airplane, but we're shooting for the 25th of October for our next meeting. Nonetheless, in these next 21 or so days, right before we meet again, here's our experiment, okay? We're going to do a spiritual scientist experiment. You're going to think about all the ways that you connect to the world materially, right? So we'll start together. This thing is one of them. This is a material good that gives you a connection to lots of people all over the world. And many of them are close to you normally. Of course, the computer itself is another example. What other things help you connect? Perhaps you have a landline telephone. That would be another thing. How else do you connect? Well, You can certainly drive your car and go to the store and you'll be connecting with people. That counts. Connections. How are you putting the message out or being able to receive messages from people? So we'll start there. Our communications. Now, all of this has been quite put out on the table very publicly. Our communications world has been totally tossed upside down. People are not so sure they can trust this stuff anymore. And that's the clarity, that's the purity of the soul saying, hey, wait a minute. This isn't quite what it seems. I want more transparency. I want more clarity. I want more choice. I want to have more control over what I am being told. That's good. So with that, you're going to start to shift your beliefs a little bit. Is everything that's coming through to me, is it true? Or is it distorted? If you can shift your belief that, hey, probably most of what I see from almost any 99.9% of places out there is going to be some slight amount of distortion. Okay. Now, the second belief shift that I'd like you to play with is notice the attitude that happens in your body. And the body's physical. It's also the number one way you connect to other people is with your body. Even if you have something interfacing between you and others, you've got to use your body to use this, don't you? So we got to include that in our infrastructure and the material part of how we connect to people. And that's what we're going to begin to use here to turn the table a little bit, to put some purity out there instead of distortion. So we're going to say, all right, first, the words that come out of my body are certainly going to emulate the beliefs that I have. So the communication that moves through physically my body needs to be more pure. How can I then address that? Well, there's lots of places to learn a little bit of better communication or compassionate communication out there. Tons and tons of ways to practice. So that would be the first thing. Notice how you're using your body and see if you can move some of the distortion out of the way through that inquiry and let it be more pure. Now, it doesn't mean you're not going to have an opinion. It just means that you're going to own it. You're going to own it. You're going to embody that opinion, right? And you're not going to project it on anyone, which would be a judgment. You're going to own it. So that wording says, I feel, I believe, I know, I have experienced. And we own that. And we don't use any yous or buts or I's when we're working towards something. We're going to only own it and say, I feel, I know, I believe. And that's a good start. Now, the other thing is, since we've got to change the material and how we interact with it along with our beliefs to create real culture change that's faster, which means social structure and political economy changes, then we're going to begin to use these devices and the networks that are embedded within them. We're going to use them for light. So if we're running all that light, if all of us say we dedicate this next month to, I'm going to put as much light through as possible. I'm going to notice exactly the kinds of things I'm sharing on different platforms. I'm going to use the right words that are more compassionate. I'm going to practice with that. Don't expect yourself to be perfect by any means. This is an ongoing experiment. I'm going to begin to shift my vantage point to a self-inquiry vantage point, and therefore put as much light out into the system as possible, what will happen? Well, all of these systems and structures that are crumbling, that had been holding a lot of this impurity in place and distortion in place and triggering us all over the place, a lot of that ends up kind of busting apart a little more and a little more. When there's more and more people practicing their self-inquiry belief mindset by using the material world to put that out there, like computers, cell phones, phones, and the body itself. So let's use this time for building the new earth through the existing systems and technology that are still in place. We begin to rebuild now, immediately, while everything's falling apart around us. Immediately we begin to rebuild. We begin to put our energy out there as pure light and as undistorted as we can. We acknowledge our vulnerabilities and our traumas. We acknowledge our ego. If you've followed me, you know I do. And I think it's really important because the whole teacher-student realm is just done. It's really important that we take real responsibility for that. And we say, I am traumatized. I have a big ego. I am suffering. I am human. Why? Because unity, my liberation is tied to yours as a species. So culture change is what we're going to practice this month together. And if you can, if you've got a chance to, and you'd like to come and join in a community who talks about this stuff every day, come and join us on the Circle online community. We're all in self-inquiry constantly. It's exactly how we navigate all of this. And no matter what happens, there's so much love between the people. It doesn't matter if we disagree or not. There's always self-inquiry going on. We're practicing triggers or treasure, merger is freedom, and we're all doing the best we can with it. But to be able to have a community that helps you with that is key. And so as far as my experience, it's not a sounding board and it's not a bubble. There's a lot of diversity there. Come and join us if you'd like. Go to 12starspublishing.com and you'll see the Circle community. There's a little tab at the top. Come join us and see if that resonates with you. And come try it out. Come talk with us so that we can help you and support you in this self-inquiry journey, because it is a mindset shift. It's the biggest belief shift that we can make for culture change, for a society that's and communities that are going to work together at a global scale. They're going to. That's what we're going to create. That's our fun attempt at building the new earth. So let me shift gears a little bit into the esoteric on this and give you a big, huge, universal viewpoint of what's happened. The experiment in consciousness that we have known up until this point is finished. This is a huge statement. Huge, immense. I could even do like a 30-second video where I simply just say that statement. And I'm not so sure it would even really truly hit home as deeply as it should for all of us, including me. The human experiment in consciousness, as we have known it for 500,000+ years, is over. 500,000+ years 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 is over. It's over. Sit with me on this one. The door is shut. Everything we do from here is a new experiment. It's all new. The library of consciousness is wide open. That means that all of the limitations to what we were capable of is done. There are no holdouts. There is no part of consciousness we cannot access anymore. There are no gatekeepers. There is no more energies, people, places, beings, dimensions in between us and whatever we're going to create from here. It's time for us to step into our sovereign power in sovereign service, which includes the self. Self-care is key here. You must include yourself in this. You've got to love your body and you got to love your soul. You've got to love you. You count. And so it's sovereign service. A sovereign is in divine service, not service to self. A true sovereign asks for their ego and their trauma to be moved aside so that the divine will of source can run the show. A true sovereign is in constant service to all living beings, including the creator in you. And this is all cutting edge. If you are alive right now, then you are on the cutting edge. There's nobody who's a whole bunch of like steps ahead of you. The enlightenment process is totally changed. Now, enlightenment has to include your body. You can't just do it with your mind anymore. That's over. That's been way over. The whole teacher-student dynamic, guru-student dynamic, that's all done. We're all teachers and we're all students now, no matter what age, no matter where you're from, no matter if you're sick in bed or you can barely talk, no matter if you're in a wheelchair and can't even feed yourself properly by yourself, you are key to this. We must do this together. We're all cutting edge. We're going to master this whole consciousness thing in new ways, and new skills and new ideas will arise to the surface. The innovation of the human experience cannot be underestimated. And it will rise forth from all of this, from this empowerment. And this is the empowerment paradigm. The whole other experiment of, can love conquer power over? Yes, it can. And even it depends on, which game board you're on. But from my vantage point and the vantage point of those that I work with closely and the vantage point of those that I have learned from intimately, the light has won. How do I know? Because you're actually listening to me talk right now. Just me, little me. I'm turning 38 on the 15th of this month. That's why I like October. But every birthday month, I'm always amazed and humbled by the fact that anyone has ever wanted to hear me talk about anything. It's amazing. And that I've been privileged enough, so privileged, to have such great teachers and such a great family that I came from, such great friends and community. So privileged and blessed. How did I get here? All I have to do is look at you. You are the one who carved the way. All of you, you've had to go through this past paradigm of power over. You carved your way to freedom through your desire for something better for yourself. You carved your way. And those paths are the paths that I took. I couldn't be here without you. You made this happen. You made it so that we could talk like this. Is all of the distortion over? No. No, but we've got a handle on it. We know what to do. We have the tools. It starts with the self-inquiry every time. And it starts with us experimenting with these platforms and these technologies and saying, can I use this to put more light in the world and bring my pure soul energy and light out into this world? Can I use it that way instead of any other way? Yes, you can. And through that, as you approach the world in a self-inquiry belief mindset, then the change starts to happen. And the more people that pick this up, they like hanging around neutral people who don't have judgment. People want that. They feel good when they can have an opinion and they're not bombasted about it. Or they're not held to the fire when they're just trying to figure out the truth too. Right? When there's going to be compassion and non-judgment as our way of communicating. People really enjoy that. They like being able to feel heard and be able to also speak about what they're feeling and going through. That's really key. And in non-judgment and self-inquiry, we can do that together, no matter what it is that comes to the table. So now that this experiment is just total finished, like excellent, incredible outcome, I mean, it's seriously mind-blowing. Now, from here on out, we have full reign on this one. We are the ones who will create this next level of human consciousness. It's great. I'm so glad it's you. We're doing this together. This is good news for all of us. Allow yourself to feel accomplished even in the midst of the wildness going on the planet. Pat yourself on the back. You've done this. You've been part of this. You helped us get through this. Now let's see it move through all the dimensions and affect the 3D finally. It will. No doubt this big shift is going to percolate through all those dimensions, and then we're going to start seeing some major 3D clarification of all of our structures and systems and peoples and groups and camps, etc. All of that will become more and more clear. More and more, and it takes time. Be patient as these big dimensional shifts move through. They've got a bunch of dimensions to move through, all right? So let's notice that unfold. There's a lot of grace that can be had from there. Good. So we've finished talking for this hour, and now it's time to look at any questions that have come through. I'm going to address my Q&A board first. And so this is a great question. Jarate, I believe that's how I hope I'm pronouncing it right. I'm sorry. Elizabeth, what is the first thing to do when your body is overwhelmed by a very high frequency energy and can't handle it, when you feel really shaky? I love that question. Here's what my friend would say. She does a lot of healing. Actually, she was around my daughter recently, and my daughter wanted to run high energy frequency through her body. I mean, she's a kid. But she is embarrassed to get shaky. And I think everyone realized all at once in the living room, like, oh, why can't we allow that? It doesn't last forever. It doesn't last forever. Let this move through. If you resist it, it's going to cause problems. It's going to cause trauma, or it's going to make you feel burned out. And overwhelm is a sign of resistance. So here's what I would do. I would use my heart field and talk to that heart, who can talk to all your cells, and say, dear heart, let's do it together right now. Dear heart, please allow all the high frequencies in my body and my field to be welcomed and move through without resistance. Now, and take a deep breath. So if your body wants to shake, let it. Don't hold back. Don't resist it. It wants to move through. That's all. It just wants to move through. It wants to be welcomed by you. It's got somewhere to go. It's not going to stay. It can't stay. It just needs your help. You're a conduit. Your body's literally a conduit. So let it move through. Does electricity shake a little bit? Yeah, it's vibrating. Your body is vibrating all the time. But big frequencies like that, let it move through. Don't worry about what anybody thinks. If they ask you if you're okay, say, oh yeah, I feel a lot better now, because you will. Just, it's moving through, man. It's all good. This is why some ancient traditions actually would have people shake on purpose and breathe a lot, right? To let stuff move through and get your body used to letting it move. The other thing that I want to suggest to you is that if you're having a lot of pain or a lot of overwhelm from energy and frequency or emotion, that probably as a conduit, physically, you're not grounded enough on the earth. So your body's like a lightning rod. And if you live up high, most houses are up off the ground, apartments, you're not touching the actual earth. It's a must. It's 100% must to get your bare feet on that planet for 10 minutes at least every day. Or hug a tree if you can't. Maybe it's too cold. It's getting cold in the northern hemisphere. Hug a tree. Let that tree, whose energy goes straight up and out, let that tree take it. Give it to them. They love it. They just suck it right out of your body. They're big conduits. They're made of water. That's why lightning hits trees. It's also why lightning hits people. It's because they're made of water. They're actual conduits, right? Good. So give those two things a try. Ground yourself very physically as an actual conduit of energy, like a lightning rod on the ground, barefooted or with trees involved. And do some heart commands and let yourself shake. Let it move through you. Give yourself a chance to not resist, and you'll find a lot more peace. Good. And then so Michelle's asking about integrating energies. Someone's mentioned updates or upgrades in the body, and that if we don't integrate, there can be a reversal of energy in the energy field, and then we have to do a lot of work to upgrade again. Sounds like a lot of work. I think it could be a lot simpler than that. The upgrades, updates, whatever they might be, are simply changes if you're resisting changes, then yeah, you're going to find yourself deeply uncomfortable, and it'll continue to build up in the system, making you feel cut off from source, cut off from energy, cut off from people. But it's simpler than what I think that person was saying. It's that we are here not to resist change. If we don't resist or have attachments to outcomes and we're trying to go with the flow and we remain in the moment, then we're going to be fine. And everyone is different. Every single person's different. So their integration is going to be unique in the universe, and it's going to be key for consciousness in general. So what I would say is, don't worry about the future. Don't worry about, oh, if I don't do this, then this is going to happen. That's leaking energy into the future. Keep asking yourself every moment in the now, what can I do right now? What can I do right now to help myself feel grounded, to be able to be in a compassionate state, to remain in inquiry, to put more light through all the technology and connections I have? Then you're good to go. Then whatever's going on, upgrades, updates, changes within, will be less resisted. All right, so very good. And Alicia has a very good question here. She understands that empaths have to let through the energy, but what if you just physically can't cope? You've got to be a commander, Alicia. You can't let this stuff control you anymore. When big, huge chunks of energy and emotion come through, especially from the collective, you are the commander of your field. You have a personal field and an impersonal, more universal field. That personal field of yours ought to feel physically still. If it's not, then the impersonal, bigger field is leaking through that boundary. That boundary is important because it helps you maintain self-care so your body's not in fight or flight all the time. So here's what I like to do. Whenever we ask something to shift, we can replace it. But we got to be consistent about talking to that big outer field that seems to have a lot of control over you physically right now. So you're going to say, dear heart, I command. Be the commander. You're the soul in charge. I command that all energies that do not belong to me move out of my personal field and move through, up, down, or out, now. And then take a big deep breath. Anything that remains in the personal field is yours, and you need to make sure you're doing emotional processing to be able to shift anything that's still causing physical trouble. The feeling of being physically incapable of managing emotion and energy like that is oftentimes because the emotional process hasn't been totally fulfilled. So there's trauma still built up in your system getting triggered by the immensity of what you're feeling. Now we asked for a whole bunch of stuff to leave. Now we know what's ours. And you got to practice with this and you'll get more sensitive to it. Now you'll feel what remains and that's yours. Now anything that you're shifting from there, you can welcome different energies, but you're always going to still need to go dig into these emotions that are being held so you can process them fully and know exactly what is being healed. But when we move stuff out of the way, we want to replace it with light too. So we can say, dear heart, fill my whole body, fill my personal field, fill my greater field with pure light from my soul now. And take a deep breath. Be consistent about these commands. every day, and you'll start to feel a little bit more in your capable self, your creator being self, so that you can feel the peace that you deserve, my friend, as all these changes happen. Good. So I want to notice something with each of you. I'm going over to check out some other questions real quick. So bear with me. I'll be right back with you. Hang on. Got lots of places to look at questions, so we want to make sure they're getting addressed. All right, very good. So Lynn has a great question. She says, the whole body thing seems so challenging. How do we begin to include our body in all of this? And I'm guessing Lynn is really talking especially about full body enlightenment, this concept of full body enlightenment. And so how do we include the body in all of that? Well, you're going to want to always be sure and address really deeply in yourself where your feelings are. So we use the emotional body to figure out where certain stuff is hiding in the DNA in the body, where trauma and ego is hiding, right? Let's say you express an opinion and then somebody just totally dismisses you, right? Maybe your throat gets tense and you say, wait a minute, I don't feel heard about this. That's not fair. And then suddenly this just crushing feeling around not being heard is showing up in the body. Well, then we tend to avoid it and we say, I'm out of here. I don't want to, or we fight to protect ourselves, fight or flight, right? The other attitude, the way you include the body in this process of clarification, of purifying the DNA from all that trauma and ego stuff, is you're going to find that energy. Okay, I have it. It's here in my throat. My throat feels tense when I don't feel heard. I don't feel heard because of a lot of trauma around not feeling heard, because I was told to be quiet as a kid all the time, because I'm surrounding people who never want to listen to me and think I'm crazy. That hurts me. And it's going to conglomerate right here. You need to follow your discomfort. Okay, I feel this energy of not being heard fully in my throat. And then you're going to welcome it. I welcome you not being heard. I welcome you, trauma around not being heard. I welcome you in my throat right now. Right? One layer at a time. All right, I feel angry. It moves through my core and up through my face. My face gets hot. I welcome you, anger. I welcome you in my body. It doesn't feel good. It burns. I welcome you fully. And then you breathe. And then you say, now what's next? Now what's next? What's the next fear? What's the next discomfort? What's the next trigger? That's how you include your body. And then by talking to your three minds, that's the second way. Brain mind, heart mind, gut mind. Everybody gets to say. Will they always agree? No. They have different vantage points. Logic, pros and cons, and transactions. Full body memory and experience without distortion. Like the brain is good at magnifying and erasing stuff. The heart doesn't do that. And then the gut is survival in harmony with the earth. And then all forms of self-care, my friend, that counts too. Bring yourself into your body. Ask for your friend's help. See if you can trade. Get your body out in the grass on the Go hug those trees. Do things to be in the body and enjoy being in the body. Eat nourishing, healthy, local, fresh food. Sing, pray. Move light through you, through your words, deeds, hopes, dreams. You've got it. It's that simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. Good. Just checking out this other set of questions here. So Moria asks a question, what's going on that is causing people to grasp for energy from light bearers? Some days it's just too much. With the experiment over, can we sustain ourselves while things get sorted? The sustaining is certainly going to happen internally first. So internal shifting is going to help you to feel more nourished. If the distortion of and the agony and pain of ego and trauma are addressed daily through proper emotional processing, and that light is grounded and integrated in the body through meditation. Processing and meditation get you the nourishment you need. When folks are feeling like they can't get light from inside themselves, then sure, of course, that would be the smart next step, right? The survival next step, to go and search out for people who seem to have more light than you. And so then they can reach out, and maybe that ends up becoming a situation where that person feels dependent on that light. That's also something that's happened, and it's totally normal. There's no shame in any of that. But what's missing is that person knowing exactly those tools that they need so that they don't end up having dependence or codependence, that they're not totally alone and feeling only independent either, but that they're unified, that they feel like they can find light in everything, especially themselves. That's accomplished through emotional processing, through merger with those frequencies so they no longer have power over. If you feel overwhelmed, you need to welcome the overwhelm. If you feel like it's just too much, then you must welcome the feeling of just too much. Find it in your body and welcome it there over and over again until it subsides. And then meditate. Some of you prefer to pray. Either way, bring your mind and your emotional body into stillness through meditation and processing, and you'll find the rest catches up, and that you'll find more people around you who are filled with light, and there's going to be light from you and light from them, and that's unification. It's nourishment from the inside out and the outside in. And that's what we're co-creating. We're collaborating in that. We're making sure that we can create a new situation where no one feels left out, where no one feels existentially starved anymore, and nobody's dependent on anyone else for their healing. That the healing then occurs because everyone realizes it moves through us when we make room. Does that mean we stop asking for help from other people? Definitely not. That's not what that means. It means that those people that we ask help for, then we're going to find that they're going to empower us. So look for light bearers and light teachers and teachers of all sorts out there who are all about empowering you and making sure you're not feeling dependent on them, who are going to be freely willing to give tools often, whose sessions leave you feeling like you're capable of doing the things you want to do and not wondering what to do next. That's the new empowerment paradigm. And for you who are out there as people of light workers, light bearers. Keep in mind, how can you begin to tweak the way that you interact with people in the world? Are you there to make sure that they don't need you when they're trying to do emergency healing? That would be the best mindset to come at all of this with. I'm here to make sure you don't need me, to be able to know how to get to a full body state of light and love, and to be able to navigate chaos more easily from within. That would be my job. And I also have sought out and found teachers who they want me to know exactly how to do what I need to do without them too. And I'm so blessed. So I get to share the idea. Has that made it so that people don't want to work with me? No, it's the other way around. It's the other way around. Then the people that do want to work with me, they know that I'm going to empower them. That I'm not just going to give them easy answers. No, I never do that. I walk you through. I make sure you know what you're doing so that you don't need me on that thing next time. Then you'll be able to do it on your own. And this is a huge amount of wisdom and knowledge for us to navigate. We all need each other in this. I'm always asking for other vantage points on what I'm doing and where I'm at and how I'm doing. So we can't have any more toxic shame about us asking for help. And we certainly aren't going to be here cultivating more dependence either. Because we're all students and teachers together and our liberation is tied together, every time someone has a breakthrough, it helps us all. And every time you, as a person who's giving light out into the world, every time you're there in a mindset of total empowerment and not competition, that shifts things too. So that's how we're going to do this. And that's what's required. It's straightforward. The tools are there. Every time we do a circle call, I always make sure to post a link to find free resources on how to use some of these exact tools I'm talking about. So there's ebooks, multiple ebooks and other resources to help you out with all of this, that walk you step by step through all this stuff. And I want to make sure every month that you get that. So sometimes I got to tweak the link. But in every replay, you'll always find all those resources there. I want to make sure you have them so that you can begin to use these tools and share them freely. Share them freely. Good. So Jody asks a very interesting question here. Can you say more about how human consciousness is transmuting and connection to universal consciousness? Is the consciousness of other species changing too? Well, I believe consciousness and evolution is constantly happening, and it tends to happen in big bursts. So right now in consciousness, there's a big burst going on in human consciousness, if you haven't noticed. These in science are called punctuated equilibrium. Punctuated points of change that create balance. That's literally how we could describe the moment in time at the moment, I think, where we're at on the planet. And human consciousness was always universal. It's just that because of trauma and ego, we've been blocked from that, from being able to feel it, from being able to use it. So we ended up gaining global consciousness very literally through the internet by around 2009. So that wasn't that long ago. That was a decade ago. Global consciousness. What does that mean? That means that a person's capable of thinking about somebody else on the planet somewhere. That's not what happened all the time. True global consciousness was often totally relegated to the upper classes who were doing international trade at the turn of the century and a little bit before that. But global consciousness didn't truly happen for everyone on the whole planet until 2009. So here we are 10 years later, and universal consciousness is now on the plate. Doesn't mean everybody's gained it yet. It means it's available. And those that have attained that consciousness, which means, hey, we're a planet in a solar system, in a galaxy, in a universe, not just a little lonely person in this crappy society I don't like. It's the realization that, hey, we're part of a huge, massive experiment in consciousness called the universe. That would be universal consciousness. That's occurring. And those of us that work with that mindset, that's now making it available to the collective. Well, guess what? That's a big shift in consciousness. The collective has to catch up, punctuated equilibrium, to create more balance in consciousness. So that's where we're at right now. And that's why it feels real weird and like very formless and very difficult to navigate, because we're witnessing such a massive shift in consciousness. And there's a lot of resistance to it. That's what's causing it. It's the formlessness and the resistance to it that's causing the chaos. So that's going to be key. Just always consider that. And that's where we're at in consciousness and where we'll continue to go as we begin to balance ourselves as a species, as a whole. Good. And so Anne is asking, how can we protect ourselves physically and financially right now during all this transition? Well, without causing any keyword havoc here, I want to speak to this. Protection is separation. So if you feel like you have to have a boundary between you and a frequency, you want to merge with the frequency so it doesn't have power over you, then you're going to feel free. Now, when it comes to physical protection, well, the best thing you can do is always be in a mindset of preparedness. Being willing to think of, well, what are the possible worst case scenarios in my particular situation and place? Worrying about global scenarios isn't going to help you. Think about exactly where you are, where you live, what are the possible worst case scenarios, assess them, decide what kinds of actions you're going to want to take that are very straightforward based on the hierarchy of needs. You got to breathe. That's going to be important. You got to be able to have water. You need food. You need shelter. You need to be able to continue to meet those same needs over time. So that's why preparedness is handy. It's a very important mindset. Preparedness is safety mindset. I'm so lucky my family is all preppers, but that's because my father was all a safety expert. So preparedness meant physical and emotional safety. Making sure you're networking with the exact right people. If you need to move because of some disaster, who will you stay with? Make sure you know exactly how that's going to look. Reach out. If you don't know anybody, come join us on the Circle community so we can all connect. It's always good to know that you've got friends on there who are going to be able to set you up with this preparedness mindset, including me. I'm on there too, every day. But preparedness keeps you safe. That's key. And it's not us versus them survivalist at all. It's just about making sure that all the outcomes are accounted for the best that you can do. A little bit at a time. Little extra water put away every day, little extra food put away when you go shopping. That's a good start. Just knowing what possible disasters might happen around you. They change everywhere you go. One corner it's going to be earthquakes, another it'll be fire, another it'll be tornadoes. So it just depends on where you're at. But some of them are more likely than others. And so then you can breathe easy because not all of them are going to happen all at once. So what is the likelihood that those things will happen too? Prepare for the most likely thing and just start there. When it comes to financial protection, I've always said this over and over, and I'm going to spell it out for you literally because I just want to be able to make sure that this is easily accessible. GOLD, in hand, physical. That's what will protect you. In the other realms of concern, that will protect you. It will keep all of that safe so that it's not lost in inflation. That's all you need to know. And the next best would be its little sister, SILVER. So those two. Why? Both of them have incredible healing capabilities, endless amounts of value throughout time, and their value is stable. And it will only ever go up. It'll continue to go up as it has over the years, maintaining its stability. And even better, when the systems of distortion are shifted, I think you'll find that that protective investment will serve you well. And I can't give you investment advice. I can only give you what I have acknowledged and experienced from other teachers, but also researched myself. And so I encourage you, go out there and look up that information. So that's the best way you can take care of your physical self right now. And those physical needs, they're all important. We're not leaving the 3D behind. We're including it in all the dimensions. This human body is capable of experiencing all esoteric dimensions at once. We don't need to leave anything behind. We're going to include it all. We can, and we have, and we will. Good. All right, I'm checking my other board here. Let's see if there's anything else that I can address for you. All right. Good. So I'd like to actually go into a deeper meditation with you this time than usual, because there's just all this great grand possibility out there around skills. A lot of new skills are going to be coming forward, new jobs. And I want you to notice this. There's going to be these sort of gaps, and then there's going to be new configurations, people working together in new ways. And that's going to require new positions for all of us to make sure that people don't get left behind. The best attitude we can have moving forward is asking ourselves, who's the most vulnerable around me? You go at the pace of the most vulnerable. So if you're taking a trail, right? The fastest person should not be leading. And if they're a good teacher, even if they are faster than everybody else, they're going to stay at the back of the line, making sure that the people who are moving forward at a slower pace, at their own personal pace, slow isn't wrong. Slow and steady. Better integration can be achieved through slow and steady. We don't take the pace of the fastest, we take the pace of the most vulnerable. sometimes we're vulnerable. It feels much better to have people be considering that when we move forward as communities, whether it's online or in person. So when you're traveling, for example, on foot, you make sure the most vulnerable are protected in the middle. So you have the leaders who are paying attention to all involved. You got the folks who are in leadership positions as well, or in valuable, trusted positions, and they are the front and the back of the train. The most vulnerable, the ill, the very young, the injured, the deeply traumatized, that counts. They ought to be carefully considered as we move forward in pace and with new structures and new jobs. A lot of the new skills and new jobs that will come up are going to be around making sure to maintain structures that support the vulnerable and making sure those vulnerable have a voice. That way, if, say, there's a technology that is more challenging to use for one person and not another, the new job available then is for someone who's savvy enough to make sure that the people who aren't feeling comfortable with it don't get left behind. It takes a lot of effort, but it's rewarding because even the most vulnerable have wonderful things to share, and they are teachers too, and they are just as important as any spunky, healthy teacher or fast-paced teacher. They're just as important. So with that mindset shift, that changes dynamics for all culture on our planet. New cities being built as accessible to children and to people who are vulnerable or differently abled. Imagine if all of our cities were only built for those folks first and everyone else then can still enjoy them. It would look so different. The library would be the center of the city, wouldn't it? the school, the community center. So a lot of this is old structures coming in to be renewed with new technology. A lot of it is ancient thinking coming in to be plugged into new tech and new structures. But always considering who is the most vulnerable around me right now, and do they have access easily to what I might be doing? Am I considering the most vulnerable in the things I'm doing? That's certainly going to help us with the purification of our structures, the purification of culture, and the embodiment. So I wanted to bring that to the forefront too. Keep your eye out for these new jobs, new skills, new positions that have never existed fully in these forms before. That's all coming up big time right now. Big time. Brand new stuff. Remember, that library of consciousness is fully wide open. There's sections none of us have set foot in, and it's all available. All the locks are taken off, all the gates are open. It's up to us now. We are the creators of this next new experiment, and we begin now, today, this month. Good. All right, let's get down to work here and let's build a pillar of light, shall we? Got to build that pillar of light. So I wasn't sure where we ought to build it this month, and I'm still not sure. So the energy that I've been feeling that wants to come through is equanimity. And equanimity is a field of consciousness. It says you're valuable and you're infinitely valuable and so are you. And that field of equanimity is nurtured by us dropping any old concepts of value, like, well, how much money do you make every year? Or how much money is this worth? We drop that. We can use it as a tool, but no more than that. Our true field of value ought to be equal, infinitely valuable for all things. All atoms are infinitely valuable, all humans, all perspectives. That's big. And as Jane has asked in this last question here, that fresh perspective, it is only accessed through non-judgment. You're exactly right. Janine asked this, is that what it is required? It's true. You nailed it on the head. It's a state of non-judgment. But what do we call that? It's compassion. Universal compassion says, all of you are equally valuable in the eyes of Source. No matter who you are or what has occurred, that love is unconditional, and that all things deserve to be loved simply because they exist. There doesn't need to be any other reason. That's universal compassion. And that fresh perspective comes online when you're willing to notice how you might judge anyone and run your discernment, which is the opposite of judgment. Run your discernment about the truth through your ego and your trauma. It's going to come out as a judgment. But when you're working on that ego and trauma and you're discerning, full body discernment, mind, heart, and gut, you'll find that all things have equal value from the soul's perspective, because all things can be learned from in an equal manner, and because they exist. That's the only requirement for unconditional, actual, true love. So those are the energies we're working with at the moment, the perfect ones to build a pillar of light with. And so actually, I'm seeing Italy right now, and I think partly it's because we have some Italians on today. And I did actually get to spend a little bit of time as a child in Italy when I grew up in Germany. And so Italy used to be, and still is, of course, the culture of love. There's the Italian language is a romantic language. And there are very ancient structures there from which most of our cultures on this planet are based on. So you're seeing what I mean. We ought to do a little bit of quantum archaeology today. Let's position ourselves right in the heart of Italy. Let's go to St. Mark's Square. Let's build our pillar there. And we're going to make it as big as the whole square. It's a nice big square. That's where I can envision quite easily because I visited there as a kid. So it doesn't matter if you know exactly what it looks like. Don't worry about that. Just know we're going to go with Italy. And the reason being is just energetically and psychically, I'm seeing this. The reason being is because many of our ancient concepts of democracy, our ancient concepts of social structure came from there. And so this pillar of light is going to transmit the hopes and ideas that we have, the beliefs, hopes, and ideas, the fresh perspective we have, that we're going to have new systems and new structures. And we're going to do this in gratitude for what we learned from the ancients who started the concept of civilization in Greece and Italy. The ones that we know about the best at this time, at least. Doesn't mean that the ancient concepts of civilization in much older cultures aren't equally as important. But this is the one that's showing up at the moment, especially around the idea of democracy, right? And so let's hang out with that. I'd like us to position ourselves above St. Mark's Square in a big, big, big circle of beautiful souls. I just want you to notice how many people are here. We have quite a lot. Lots of people are here. And any of you who are listening to this later at the replay, this counts. Just walk through it with us and you'll add in all of your hopes, dreams, energies as well. So the first thing I'd like you to do is drop into your gut. And I'd like you to pull up this idea that we can thrive in harmony with nature because we are a part of nature. The new systems and structures that we would like to bring through are going to include humanity as a part of nature, not separate from it. So let us take that first, that number one care of our natural surroundings, that we're no longer interested in separating ourselves from it anymore. That everything from here can be nurtured and nourished by nature, and that humans can equally nurture and nourish nature too. I'd like you to allow that energy of natural nurturing and thriving natural culture deep in your gut. And now project that energy and that feeling, that light out to the center as the foundation of our pillar with a deep breath. Now, wow. The field of energy was instantly taken up by the planet. She took it and made it hers. It covered the whole planet instantly. There wasn't even a growth period. It was instantaneous. She said, "Oh yes, this is exactly what I want." And this big field of energy got turned on. It was there all along. She just wants us to acknowledge that is possible. Oh, cool. How neat. It's this lovely light blue, like a sky blue color. Amazing. Good. It's very still. It's huge. It's just this nice, thin, lovely field of energy everywhere. Good. Come up into the heart. And from the heart is that field of equanimity. All things are worthy of love because they exist. All people, places, things, all groups, all beings, all consciousness, everything is loved by Source. That is unconditional love. And with this love, we desire very much for all of our connections, our physical, our mental, our technological connections to be filled with this pure love that is based in this equanimity. Pure love and equanimity through all connections. Allow that in your heart and project it to the center of our pillar with a deep breath now. Oh, wow. So this is just really cool. Normally with a pillar of light each month, I'll see things grow from the center and they'll Some they'll take on different forms and colors. This is totally different. This one, it's almost like the earth knows it's there. It knows it's there. And by just us acknowledging it, it's like she's like, yeah, I know that one. That's that. I want that too. And it goes bing. The whole planet lights up, not just the pillar. This is how powerful this is, this kind of work. We're acknowledging something the earth knows. And in that knowing, she's saying, yes, yes, I agree. I'm with you. And then bam, she actualizes it. It's instant. It doesn't percolate out. It just turns on. Wow, this is really cool. So this one looks very pure. It's this lovely white light and pink. Pink, when I see pink, it resonates often as that unconditional love. And obviously the divine feminine, divine mother love is what the energy is too. The divine mother, through that source energy, is constantly loving all things, no matter what. But that equanimity is also available. Very beautiful, excellent. Good. And this one right here, I'm being asked by this situation, all these people, from the questions we looked at today, I'm being asked to also, as the final piece of our pillar, to use this concept that our liberation and our prosperity is linked. Mine is linked to yours. Yours is linked to mine. This is the end of competition and the beginning power. Pull that up in the mind. My liberation is tied to all beings, and their liberation and prosperity is tied to mine. My prosperity and liberation are tied to all beings, and theirs is tied to mine. And now project that to the top of our pillar of lights. Now with a deep breath. This one was a little different. The energy went out to the pillar and then it began to spin. It began to spin counterclockwise. And it's moving out across the planet like these waves, like radio waves. This is what pillars of light are good for. They're transmitters. They're built on the fourth dimension using our imagination. And they transmit indefinitely these energies. So it's a call. We have created a call, and it's a call created through us by the earth. And the earth says, my children, you are not separate from nature, my children. I love you unconditionally, just as Source does. And the earth, she says, and I call you. I call you. Your liberation and prosperity are tied to all. And that is the call that's going out to all of the humans, to all the souls out there, drawing that light out, saying, this is how we will rebuild our new systems. And it starts with each of us. It starts with us using the technology wisely to run light back through the system. It starts with us being able to do that deep processing of trauma and ego so we can be more clear bearers of light. And it changes the structures, the social structures and the political economies. It changes those too. Changes the physical reality. Good. This is the pillar of light of the new experiment. It's the first of many pillars we will make in our new experiment. And it's a good one because it gives us a new foundation to build our civilizations into a whole other thing we don't even have a word for yet. It's not going to be civilization. It's going to be something else. New words, new possibilities, new skills, new jobs, new deeds, new beliefs. Everything's new from here. And you get to decide inside yourself, what is my new light going to be right now? So thank you. Thank you for putting your energy and an intent into this new possibility. And thank you to Italy for being a good place for this beautiful positioning of the future of possibilities. With great gratitude and reverence for the history before it. Even if it was difficult, we learned a lot in the past 500,000 years. What a wonderful blessing. All right, let's remove ourselves from our creation. So we just disconnect our mind and our heart, our gut, and our whole body and field from this pillar of light so it can exist outside of us without us needing to have to fuss with it. But add in new possibilities, add in new ideas for our relationship as humans with nature and our relationship with each other and our relationship with source. These kinds of pillars can be used as those transmitters, and with intentions, they continue to transmit those intentions to the collective. And the collective picks up on this. As sensitive as many of you empaths are to the collective, don't forget, the collective responds to each of us. Even if we can't measure it socially or technologically easily at all, the collective responds to light. You can trust that. And it responds to big shifts in consciousness, of which we are right on the edge of it every day. You and me, all of us together. How wonderful. All right. So we are at the end of our time. And I love all of you so much. I think about all of you every day, even if I don't know you very well or haven't even got a chance to talk to you. I'm always, always thinking about you because humankind is my greatest love. This experiment has been very precious to me as a soul, in that I know how truly powerful we are. I was gifted with the ability to see the soul, even as a child. And I was running around St. Mark's Square, seeing that same stuff, seeing the souls. I know what we're made of, and it's beautiful. And I know what we're capable of. And I have 100% belief that that is totally plausible, possible, and real. Why? Because many have come before us and pulled all kinds of stuff just as bad or worse as humans, and they too have still been able to do the things that we're shooting to do. If they could do it, we can. It's possible. And then, of course, our experiment is unique. There hasn't been any experiment like this. And that makes it even more exciting, because the possibilities for us exceeding the light quotient or quotient, the light can be even brighter than any of the other experiments that happened before us. And with reverence, we bow to those who came before us. And with reverence, I bow to you who came before me. Thank you for carving the way so we can do this together. You did it. I'm only turning 38 this month. If you're older than 38, then you've carved the way. So I bow to you and I thank you with reverence. Thank you. And I thank all the ancient civilizations and all of our ancestors for everything we've learned. And they celebrate us. They can't wait to see what we'll come up with. It's going to be amazing. Good. Namaste, my friends. I love you so much. And if I'm not traveling, which is possible, the 25th of this month we'll meet again. We'll be meeting only on YouTube, and you'll be able to see those dates and times, and those emails will go out, and you can see those dates and times on 12starspublishing.com or seerandscientist.com. We're going to try to streamline it and make it easier. Whatever happens, we'll meet again and we'll keep you updated. But I deeply appreciate you joining me today and being flexible. And for all of you who listen to the replay, I think about you and love you too. Thank you for your wise and very thoughtful questions today. Beautiful. I'm so excited for us and how much we grow and change together in these times where we get to meet. I treasure these times more than anything. I love you. We'll talk soon. Namaste.